Hello, everyone. Welcome back. As you can see, today we speak about the sonnet, and in particular, Shakespearean sonnet. The sonnet, probably you've heard about the sonnet before. It's one of the most famous, most important poetic forms of all time. Now, the sonnet generally is a 14-line poem, each line having 10 syllables. And the theme of the sonnet is generally love. So what is the sonnet? It's a love poem of 14 lines. Each line has 10 syllables. The sonnet originated in Italy. Italy with an I, not Y. It sounds ugly with an I, with a Y, sorry. It started in Italy in the 13th century with a very famous poet you should all know, named Dante. Dante. But it became more famous thanks to an Italian poet named Petrarch. Notice how the name is written, Petrarch. Petrarch is an Italian poet who wrote so many sonnets. The sonnet started in Italy in the Renaissance, Italian Renaissance in the 13th century. And again, it shows how more themes started to be included in poetry. It's no longer about religion and God and heroism. There are themes of relationships, of women and love, etc. Now, in a way, the sonnet migrated to England through two famous people. The first one is named Sir Thomas Wyatt, and the second one is Henry Howard. We'll know the names later on. They're not that important for now to us. So we have Henry Howard and Sir Thomas Wyatt. They imported kind of the sonnet from Italy to England. What did they do to the sonnet? They translated it. They brought and they adapted it. They, in a way, made it look English, because there are differences between Italian and English language. We have many English poets who wrote the sonnet, but the most famous of them is Shakespeare. How many sonnets did he write? 154, more or less. Some people say like a couple of them are not Shakespearean, written by someone else. It's not a big deal. Again, to us, because some people, they spend like years and years examining which sonnet is Shakespeare and which one is not Shakespeare. Again, 14 lines. 14 lines. However, Shakespeare did two things to change about the sonnet. What did he change? Before we begin talking about Shakespeare, let's go back again to the Italian sonnet to Petrarch. 14 lines. You can't change the 14 lines, because if it is 13 or 15, it's not a sonnet. It's not considered. So that's why it's usually important when you want to analyze a poem, understand the poem, count the lines. Are there 14? It's a sonnet. Not 14? Not a sonnet. Because if it is a sonnet, we'll say what the sonnet is and how important the sonnet is. Now, the Italian sonnet was, again, 14 lines and about love, the theme. There's something important about this, which is the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme, or the structure, the rhyme structure, how the music at the end of the lines of verse. The Italian sonnet sounds like this. A, B, B, A, B, B, A, sorry, C, D, C, D, C, D. We'll explain this more. We'll show you examples in a bit. Again, we have A, B, B, A, B, 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 A, and then C, D, C, D, C, D. How many? If you count them, these are 14 because a sonnet has only 14 lines. Now these are divided into two groups. Number one, the first 8 lines, which look similar in a way, A, B, B, A, B, B, A. These are 8 lines. In English, 8 lines are called an octave. You know an octopus, because the octopus has 8. Octave means 8. 8 lines. And here we have the remaining lines are assisted. Could be C, D, E, C, D, E, or different variation, but this is the most common. C, D, C, D, C, D. How many lines?
44.
6 lines, 8 lines, 14. The 8 lines are called the octave system. Now, what happens in the 8 lines, and this is significant, the problem is discussed, is elaborated. The poet exposes us to some problem between him and his beloved, and why he can't have her, why he should have her, why she's the most beautiful woman on earth. In the 6 lines, we have some kind of resolution, the conclusion. What happens next? Life is complicated, this problem, and in 6 lines, we have some sort of a resolution, something to solve this problem, to get the poet out of the trouble. So this is again generally the Italian sonnet. 14 lines, check. Love, theme, also check. The rhyme scheme is A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, D, C, D. The first 8 lines are called the octave, and then assisted. Assisted from 6.
Yes.
Okay? Now, what did Shakespeare do to change, to experiment? Remember, we said Shakespeare, in a way, he's considered the most important classical playwright and poet of, English history. But Shakespeare also wanted to change in many ways. To change in the language, to change in the form, to change in the themes. What did he do to the sonnet?
He added the last couple. He added it in iambic pentameter. Also, he changed the rhyme scheme to A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, G.
Okay, number one, thank you very much. He changed the form or the structure. What is the form, the structure of the poem? It's how the poem looks. When you look at the poem from afar, how does it look? It's short. It has these stanzas, etc. So Shakespeare, number one, it didn't start with Shakespeare, but Shakespeare made this structure famous. And his famous rhyme scheme, almost all his 154 sonnets have the same rhyme structure. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Do you know G, G? You know G, G? Yeah?
The little sister of China?
I don't know. Anyway, G, G. Without reading the poem, when we see this happening, G, G, it's the same sound, 2 lines, yeah. It tells us it's a couplet. So what is Shakespeare doing? Number one, 4 lines, and then 4 lines, and then 4 lines, and then a couplet. It's easy to know the couplet.
Because it's the same rhyme.
What's the couplet again? Yes? 2 lines of verse about one subject with the same rhyme scheme. 2 lines with the same rhyme scheme. We'll give you a lot of examples in a bit. But the 4 lines here are called quatrains. So he has 3 quatrains and a couplet. Quatrain 1, quatrain means 4. 4. A, B, they alternate. And then C, D, E, F, and finally we have G, G. That's number one. Shakespeare changes, expands the structure. What is interesting here, look at this. The poet here generally, again, has the problem in 8 lines and the resolution in 6. Now Shakespeare complicates the whole life and everything in 12 lines. In 12 lines, he just shows you that life is complex, this is the end of the world, life is destructive, time kills us all. And then when you are about to give hope, he twists in 2 lines, he gives us some kind of hope or resolution. No one can do this like Shakespeare. He's a master of this. No one can complicate everything and then in only 2 lines can change everything to the very opposite. Gives you a closure, a resolution, or at least some kind of hope for the future, like the examples we will be seeing in a bit. Now also Shakespeare changed the theme. I wouldn't say change because he kind of expanded, he added more themes. So the sonnet for Shakespeare is also a love poem.
Beauty.
It's about beauty.
Nature.
Not nature exactly, like in the romantic sense. It's about loss. It's about the passing of time. So he included more themes, more subjects. Many people still say, no, he didn't, because beauty, loss, and the passing of time are still themes that can go under the theme of love, in a way. If you notice, before I give you the examples here, when I say the sonnet has to have a certain number of lines and a certain rhyme scheme, it tells us that the sonnet is strict. If you write 13 lines, see, I wrote this sonnet, I say, sorry, this is not a sonnet. 15 lines, sorry, this is not a sonnet. So the form of the sonnet is very strict, very fixed, very rigid. It doesn't change. 14 lines. For Shakespeare, it's almost always A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Now what's going on? According to critics, they say Shakespeare, and like many people, many critics, many poets, they have realized that life is chaos, chaotic. Life doesn't follow a system, right? It's random sometimes. It's so sad that good people die, that beauty declines, that no good thing remains forever, right? So in a way, life is haphazard, chaotic. There's no system. It's full of disorder. So critics believe that Shakespeare was trying to control life by squeezing it into this tiny, rigid form, love poem of the sonnet, where usually at the end there is hope that he will live forever, that she will live forever, his beloved or his addressee, and that his poetry will live forever. So no matter what happens, no matter how harsh life is, the form of the sonnet is going to control it. The rigid form of the sonnet, the number of the lines, the number of the syllables, and the fixed rhyme scheme is going to control life and give it a form and give it a shape where only Shakespeare can control this. In a sense, Shakespeare is telling us he is the master of his own world. He is creating his own world. And there's a question here. Like, do great people like Shakespeare realize they're doing great things?
Yeah.
Did he realize, did he know he was writing great things, that he will be famous all around the world? Did he?
At the time he wrote it, he doesn't think that, because he just feels like this is what he is. But
Exactly.
people,
Later on, yeah?
yes, he show what his works affects people. He thinks.
Is there evidence in his poetry where he says something about his poetry outliving all the harsh realities of life? There is a lot of evidence. Remember last time, probably, I posted a sonnet on the Facebook group, where he ends with, so long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, my poetry, my sonnet, my verse, and this gives life to thee. So yes, beauty declines, fairness declines, life ends, death dominates, But as long as you are in my poem, in my sonnet, you will live forever and ever, and people will remember you, and you will grow. Because simply,
His poems are alive.
his poetry, his sonnet, will outlive all these difficulties. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. And this is actually the couplet to probably Shakespeare's most famous sonnet, Sonnet 18, we will see in a bit. So in brief, it's originally an Italian, European thing that was brought to England, adapted, and, things happened to it. Shakespeare made it in a way what it looks like now. But again, not all sonnets are written like this or like this. But this is called the Shakespearean sonnet, the English sonnet. And this is called the Italian sonnet. There are so many forms, but these are the most famous forms of the sonnet. Before, go on.
Is there a reason behind choosing the number 14?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But is 14 the magic number? Because it's 7 and 7 and 7. Many people love the number 7. It's my favorite number. Why 14? I think it's haphazard. It's not a big deal. But why 14? Yeah, I don't know. If there is a reason, probably we can look it up online somewhere. Before I go on, give you examples. Look at these Middle English words. These are very important to know. Remember, we have thou, meaning you for subject. Thee, you for object. In the past, they would add th instead of s for he, she, it. So hath, has. Doth, comes. And they would usually add st for thou, etc. We'll see this. Thy and thine both mean your, but the difference is like the difference between a and an. You say a book, an apple. When we have a vowel sound, you add the one with the n. Same here. Say, frailty, Hamlet says, frailty, thy name is woman. Thy name. But when we have a vowel here, I, vowel, I, thine eyes. Thine eyes, your eyes. Thou art, you are. Tis, it is. Why? Remember, it's because of the number of syllables and the music. Thyself, easy. Yourself. Ear means before. What's the difference between ear and before? Yeah. Look at the words.
The B, F, and O are removed.
Okay, so what does it mean? How many syllables are there in before? 2 syllables.
2. And air, 1.
Syllable 1, syllable 2. Before. But ear, 1 syllable. So this is what we call sometimes poetic license. You know, driving license? You have a license to drive. Now, poets have a license. Poetic license, if you want to change something just to make things fit. Same here with never. Never 2 syllables, but ne, 1. Ear, ever. Last time we had o'erthrown. O'erthrown, originally, overthrown. Please don't forget that thou, thee, have, doth. Just these major words. Thou means you. Thee means also you for object. Doth and have, does and has.
Doesn't the change in language complicate poetry?
It doesn't, of course.
If before they had the word and nowadays we change it to before, it would change the...
Yeah, it would. That's why it's good to know these words and study the sonnets, the poems in the language they were written in to really appreciate the beauty. When you modernize this, you're going to change a lot about the music and everything. So I'll probably post this on Facebook so you can get the slides to summarize the main ideas here. But don't forget again, the sonnet is a very important form where the form, remember the form, the shape, the number of lines, and the rhyme scheme helps the idea, the meaning. Where again the poet is struggling to control life, to give meaning to life, to make sense out of the chaotic nature of life. For Shakespeare, in a way, he was trying to outsmart and outlive life itself. In the sonnet, finally, the form. What is the form? The 14 lines, the number of the syllables here, the number of the stanzas here, and the rhyme scheme. What is the content? The theme. Is it about love, about loss, about passing of time, etc.? Let's see more application. This is Sonnet 17. We'll do it very quickly, but we'll talk more about Sonnet 18. How many lines? 14. Look at the shape. The last two lines are sometimes indenting, like they're pushed this way. But look at the rhyme here. We have time and rhyme. That's Gigi, huh? Yes. Shakespeare. Someone read? Okay. Speak up. Yeah.
Who will believe my... I guess you were well put.
Okay. Probably next time you sit here. Yeah, go on.
Who will believe my verse in time to come, if it were filled with your most high desert? Though yet heaven knows it, it is but a tomb, which hides your life and shows not half your parts. If I could write the beauty of your eyes, and in fresh numbers number all your graces, the age to come would say, this poet lies. Such heavenly touches near, touch earthly faces. Should my papers yellowed with their age be scorned like old men of less truth than tongue? And your true rights be termed a poet's rage, and stretch meter for antique song.
Antique song.
But were some child for your alive that time,
of yours alive that time,
you should live twice in it and in my rhyme.
Okay, one more, please.
Who will believe my verse in time to come, if it were filled with your most high desire?
Okay. While you're reading, I'll try to do the rhyme scheme. Remember, the rhyme scheme follows the A, B, C, D. The first sound is A. Why A? The first letter of the alphabet. If the second repeats the same sound, we give it A. If it's a new sound, B. So, come, desert. Listen, tomb, the B is silent, so it's not there in the sound. We care about the sound. But it's not, oh, sorry. It's not as perfectly pronounced as come. This is come, and this is tomb, grave. This is still A, but it's called imperfect rhyme. It rhymes, but imperfectly, like love and prove. Okay? And then parts goes with deserts. A, B. Go on.
If I could write the beauty of your eyes, and in fresh numbers number all your graces, the age to come would say, this God lies.
So we have eyes, C, graces, D, lies, C, and then D. Go on.
So should my neighbors yellowed with their ago,
Okay. With their age and tongue. The front, C, E, F, rage, E, and song. And finally, read the couplet.
But were some child of yours alive that time, life twice in the and my rhyme.
Okay, but were some child of you is alive that time? That's G. You should live twice in it and in my rhyme. My rhyme, my poetry. My verse. And again, the G. A, B, A, B. That's common. Coom, deserts and parts. And then eyes and lies, C, C. And graces and faces, D, D. Age, rage, E. Tongue and song, F. Time, rhyme. If I ask you a question in the exam, I bring you one of the sonnets, and it rhymes like this. And if you know this is a Shakespearean sonnet, Shakespearean couplet, if you know it by heart, you give it G rhyme scheme. But if you don't and you give me A, it's okay because it is still a sonnet. The next sonnet, a very famous sonnet by Shakespeare. Sonnet 18. Sonnet 18. I'll read it first and see 2 or 3 of you reading it. Eraser. Again, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Yes?
Shall I compare thee?
Can you speak up? Speak up.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
Rough winds.
To shake the
Darling buds of May.
and summer's days had all too short a day. Sometimes too hot to the eye of heaven shines, and often in his gold complexion dined, and every breath from fair sometimes declined, by chance or nature's changing course and detail. By thy eternal summer shall not fade.
By thy eternal summer.
Eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose position of that fair thou art, nor shall
Death.
pray thou wander in his shade, when
in eternal lines
to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long
lives this.
and this gives life.
Very good. A better reading, please. Yes.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's days? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
Shall I? Say again.
Shall I compare?
Yeah.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's days?
No, not days.
Days.
Day. Go on. Say again.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shade the darling buds of May, and summer's lease have all too short date.
Short a date.
Sometime too hot the eye of haven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed.
Complexion dimmed.
And every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course,
Untrimmed. Like dimmed, untrimmed.
But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall did brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eye can see,
or eyes can see,
so long
lives this,
and this gives life to thee.
better, can you?
Shall I
Very
compare-
good.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
Rough.
Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's face hath all too short a day. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dim. And every fur from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course, untrimmed. But the eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when his eternal lines to time thou grows, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives that this and
This gives life to it. Can someone do the rhyme scheme here? Come here. And explain while you're doing the rhyme scheme, the structure.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
You don't have to read it, just
The first
the last
one is always A.
first line, always A.
Temperate and they are not the same, so we can say B. May, of May, day, so we add A. Short, a date. A date and temperate is also A, is also B. Shines has nothing to rhyme, so we
Okay.
add a new letter, C. Dimm'd, not the same, so we can add D. Declines and shines rhyme, so we can add C. Untrimmed and dimmed is the same rhyme, we can add D. Fade is a new rhyme, so we can say E. Oast,
Like O. Because, but remember, he had not a Jew, but with you, in the past they used to add st to the verb. Thank God they dropped this long time ago. It would be a nightmare for us. So oast is if.
F. And shade and fade rhymes, we can add E. Roast and oast,
Oast.
F.
And then we come to our friend GG. A couplet, which is excellent.
C and D.
This is a better explanation than mine. Thank you. Very good job. Now, what is Shakespeare doing here? What is he saying? This is a sonnet, a love poem. But in this sonnet, there's some kind of complaint, there's a problem here. By the way, critics do not agree whether these poems were written to a man or a woman. It could be an issue, but not a big deal for us. Let's study the text itself. Shall I compare these to summer? In England, summer is the best season because it's not very cold, because winter is really horribly cold. So he's saying, shall I compare thee to summer's day? This is a rhetorical question. And then he says, I think I shouldn't, because of many things. Because you're more beautiful than summer. You're more temperate. Summer is short. Summer doesn't last. Sometimes there is rough wind that shakes the darling buds of May. So summer is not as beautiful as you are. You're more beautiful than that. And sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. And often is his gold complexion dim. The clouds sometimes cover everything and it's no longer beautiful. And this is probably one of the finest lines of Shakespeare. And every fair from fair sometime declines. Fair meaning beauty. Like a fair, a fair person, a fair woman is like the most beautiful there is. So these things, these features do not last, the beauties of the summer compared to you. Generally, every fair from fair sometime declines. Beauty doesn't last forever. We are all going to grow old and ugly, and then we're going to die.
Beauty will fade.
Beauty will fade. Fairness will. Notice the repetition of the sound. It's like you're like complaining, sad, angry, by chance, etc., etc. And then he says, but thy eternal summer, thy eternal shall not fade. You're more beautiful than summer itself. Nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shape. And this is again beautiful because Shakespeare is personifying death. Death is not a person. Death doesn't brag, doesn't show off. People brag. People show off. And this is personification. We said personification is when you give things, the features, the characteristics, the traits of human being. It's personification. Death, even death, will not brag about killing you because you're going to outlive everything. When in eternal lines, these lines that will live forever. This in part answers the question whether Shakespeare knew he was writing really, really good poetry, amazing poetry that will be famous all over the world. Maybe he knew he's going to be famous all across London and the UK, maybe in Europe. But did he know he's going to be here, studied in Gaza?
No.
Or in China or in Africa? Or we don't know, nobody knows. But certainly those great minds, the giants, the canonical writers, they know, at least they know they're doing something great. And then finally, the couplet here gives us hope. What he does here is that, we are all going to die. But then comes the hope, comes the closure. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, my sonnet, my poetry, my verse, my rhyme. And this gives life to thee. And it's true. It's ironic we don't know who he wrote the poem for, but we know that whoever that person is still alive. People are talking about him or her. And let's end with something from, I downloaded this video from YouTube. This is a recitation of Shall I Compare Thee to Summer's Days?
Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to...
Now I want you to listen to this, and then there's a little girl who's going to also recite this. I want you to see which one you like most.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his bold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Let's see the little kid and then stop there. Is it this one?
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot So long lives this, and this gives light to thee.
Oh, cute. Isn't she cute?
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful how she renders Shakespeare to this little tiny recitation of the sonnet. We'll stop here, and we'll see what if you have any question about Shakespeare, about the sonnet.